Hi, Thomas. Here we
Hi,
are again.
Claire.
It's good to see you back this week. Um,
Good to see you.
what have you been up to this week? Now, I hear you've got some really important news. You found out some really important results this week. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. I've officially finished university now.
Congratulations. And does that mean you've got your results from all your exams and assignments?
Yeah, that's it. I've got a 2-2, which means I've passed, so that's really good.
That's brilliant. That's really, really good. So that means no more university studying for you for a little while,
No,
maybe?
no.
No. Great. Now, what else? What else have I been up to? Well, I actually managed to see my sister last Saturday. I went to visit her, and we sat in the garden and had some yummy chocolate cake, which was really,
Oh,
really nice.
nice.
I hadn't actually seen my sister since Christmas. And children, I wonder, perhaps you've been seeing some of your family. Maybe you've seen grandparents, perhaps aunts and uncles and cousins. And I wonder if perhaps when you've seen them, you've thought, gosh, they've changed. When I saw my sister on Saturday, I thought, yeah, her hair has grown really, really long since the last time I've seen her. So she changed a little bit. And does that sort of links in a bit with what we're going to look at today, doesn't it, Thomas? Can you
Yeah.
talk a bit more?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the changes that occurred in the story
Oh.
in Joseph's life.
Yeah, some changes in Joseph's life, but I think also some changes in Joseph's brothers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, some amazing changes. And I don't think it was just their hair that had grown longer, was it, Thomas?
No, not just the hair.
Now, I think you've got some pictures. We're going to have a look at some pictures about different things that change. And what do you want us to do as we look at these pictures, Thomas?
Well, I'm going to show you a presentation of all these images. I'm going to show you an old picture and a new picture of the same thing. And I'm going to show you, Claire, a picture of the old one. I'm going to ask you what it is, and then I'm going to show you the new one, and then we're going to discuss the changes that have occurred in those images.
Great. Okay. And
Awesome.
children, you can watch along as well, and you can answer the questions. You'll probably be quicker than I am. So here we go.
Let's go. Here we go.
Oh.
This should be the first one.
Yeah, I can see that, Thomas. Now, that looks as if it was taken a long, long time ago. Long time ago, because it's a black and white picture. And children, I wonder if you can work out where it is. There's a bit of a big clue on the top of the picture. It's probably somewhere that you've been a lot, isn't it? Yeah, Parker's Piece in Cambridge. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, a really long time ago. And this is what it looks like now, which I'm sure you're all more familiar with.
So some things are still the same. So there's still that lamppost in the middle, but I think a big change, Thomas, is it's in colour. Yeah, colour photo.
So when colour was invented.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and here's the next one.
I
wonder who this is.
Well, a picture of a little boy, perhaps helping out his mum at home in the garden. He looks about 6 or 7. Yeah, I don't know. Go on, let's see the next one. Children, who do you think this might be?
I wonder who it is. Look at the hair difference. Here we go.
It's you, Thomas.
It's me.
What changes can you see, children? Well, Thomas has already said his hair gone really curly.
Yeah, I've gone a bit taller.
Yeah, I think he looks a lot taller. He's dressed a bit differently. He's got a shirt and tie on. He looks very smart. Yeah,
upgraded.
lots of changes there, Thomas. Yep.
Here's the next one. Here we go.
Okay.
Hopefully the children have at least one of these every day.
Maybe, yeah. Or they might be their favourite fruit. There might be something else that's their favourite fruit. Yeah, that looks like a yummy, shiny apple. I'd really like to eat that.
Well, that's it, yeah. Now, this change is going to be a little bit different than the other ones because this isn't a very good change.
Oh,
Ugh, icky.
yeah. I wouldn't like that if I found that in my fruit bowl.
Mm,
Probably have to go in the bin. Yeah, that's a big change. That's a bit of a nasty change, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the next one.
So we've got, yeah, I wonder if anybody knows who this lady is. It's another black and white photograph, isn't it, Thomas?
Yeah, she's a very important lady.
It was taken a long time ago.
Very long
You've
time ago.
changed a lot. Somebody's changed a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure this person's a little bit older nowadays.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a lot older.
Yeah, so here we go. There she is.
It's the Queen. Yeah, she has
Yeah,
changed, hasn't she? She's changed a lot. Her hair just changed colour. Her face looks much older as well. She's wearing different clothes.
yeah.
Those were amazing changes, Thomas. Should we go back to the main screen? Yeah.
Sure. Here we go.
There we are. Those were amazing changes, Thomas. Some of those things that happened. It's really good, isn't it, to think about how different things change and how different people change. But we were just looking, weren't we, really about changes on the outside. Whereas I think what we're going to see today is that actually there's an amazing change in the hearts of Joseph's brothers, a really big change on the inside. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say goodbye. And I think after this, you're going to see Thomas, and Thomas is going to remind us of why the brothers needed to have their hearts changed. And then I'll come back a bit later to tell you the story from Genesis about what happened this week. And then at the end, we've got Tim back. Tim is going to help us think through about what it means to us.
Hello. So today we're going to be doing a quiz on Genesis 37 about Joseph's brothers. Okay. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay. So Jacob had 12 sons, but loved Joseph more. How did his brothers feel because of this? Was it 1, his brothers didn't care about who was loved more? Or 2, his brothers hated Joseph? Or 3, his brothers loved him? Think about it. Have you got your answers? Hopefully you remember. It was 2. His brothers hated him. Yeah, they don't look very happy with him, do they? Okay, next question. Joseph had a dream that he would rule over his brothers. But how did that make them feel? Was it 1, his brothers were shocked, but they were okay with it? 2, his brothers hated him even more? Or 3, his brothers were happy with his dream? Can you remember? Let's check the answer. It was 2. His brothers hated him even more. Look how much more angry they are now. They aren't very happy with him, do they? All right, next question. Because of how his brothers felt about Joseph, what did they plan to do about it? 1, his brothers planned nothing. Or 2, his brothers plotted to kill him. Or was it 3, his brothers wanted to throw him a surprise party? You can see them there. It doesn't look like they're going to throw him a party, does it? Got your answers ready? It was 2. His brothers plotted to kill him. Look, they threw him down a well. It's not very nice, is it? Okay, next question. After they threw him down the well, what happened next? His brothers wanted to pull him out of the well and forgive him? Or 2, his brothers saw some travelers and sold Joseph as a slave? Or was it 3, his brothers felt really bad about what they did and they started to cry? Okay, answers ready? It was 2. His brothers saw some travelers and they sold Joseph as a slave. He had to go and live in Egypt, didn't he? If you can remember. Yeah. So that's the quiz. Thank you for playing. Wonder how well you did. Hopefully you could remember all the different answers from last week's story. And now we're going to listen to Claire, and she's going to continue the story. I want you to listen very carefully about how the brothers changed.
God was with Joseph, and Joseph was made second in charge of all Egypt. It was Joseph's job to store the food in the 7 good years. Then it was Joseph's job to hand the food out in the 7 bad years. Egypt was the only country that had food. People from everywhere came to buy food from Joseph. Back home, Joseph's family had no food. Jacob and his family were very, very hungry. So Jacob told his sons to go to Egypt and buy food, or else they'd die. So Jacob's sons went to Egypt. All of Jacob's sons went except the youngest, Benjamin. Jacob was afraid Benjamin would get hurt. When the brothers arrived in Egypt, they were brought before Joseph, but they did not recognize him. Joseph, however, knew who they were, but Joseph didn't tell them. The brothers bowed before Joseph, and Joseph remembered his dreams. Joseph decided to test his brothers and said, "You are spies. You have come to spy on Egypt." But the brothers cried out, "We're not spies. We're brothers. We even have a younger brother still at home." But Joseph had his brother Simeon thrown into jail. Simeon would stay in jail until they brought their youngest brother. Joseph's brothers looked at each other and said, "This is all because of what we did to Joseph." They did not realize that Joseph could hear them, and Joseph wept. The brothers went home and told their father what had happened, but Jacob would not let them take Benjamin back to Egypt. He was afraid he'd never see Benjamin again, just like Joseph.
So Simon had been left behind in Egypt, in prison. Joseph had been testing his brothers. He wanted to see if they'd changed at all, if they were sorry for what they'd done, and if they'd allowed God to change their hearts. Would they come back with Benjamin, just as he told them when they needed more food? Or would they just not care about Simeon and leave him in Egypt, just as they'd done with Joseph? Well, after a time, the food that they brought back from Egypt ran out. There was none left. Jacob and the brothers, they were hungry again. And there was only one place that had food, Egypt. They needed to go back, but they remembered what the Egyptian ruler, what Joseph had told them. He'd said, "If you come back, you must bring your youngest brother with you, or I won't sell you any food." Well, they begged their father Jacob to let them take Benjamin with them. But Benjamin was their father's favourite. But finally, he agreed. So the brothers loaded up their donkeys and set off on the journey back to Egypt. Well, they arrived at the palace and they were brought before Joseph. And when they saw him, remember, he's the number 2 in the whole of Egypt. He's a very important man. They bowed down before him. Remember God's promise to Joseph all those years ago, that one day his brothers would bow down before him because he would rule over them. Yes, God's promise had come true. What God had said had finally happened. Well, Simeon was released from prison and reunited with his brothers. And Joseph gave the order for a huge meal to be served for the brothers. And so platters of food were brought in. Joseph arranged for the brothers to be seated, with Reuben, the eldest, all the way down to Benjamin,
the youngest. And then he's asked for the brothers to be served food from his table. Wonderful, wonderful food. But he made sure that Joseph was served 5 times as much food as any of the other brothers. Joseph knew what had happened when his father had treated him differently because he was the favourite son. And he wanted to know what would happen when Benjamin, the favourite son, was treated differently. Would the brothers be the same as they were all those years ago? Would they grumble and would complain? Would they be jealous? No. God had changed the brothers, and the brothers didn't grumble or complain or get jealous. But Joseph had one more test for the brothers. Joseph had a very special silver cup. It was a sort of belonged to him because of his role as the second most important person in Egypt. He said to his servants, "You need to fill up the men's sack with food, as much food as they can carry, and put back all the silver that they brought with them to pay for the food. But my silver cup you must put in the sack belonging to the youngest son." So the servants did just as Joseph told them. And early the next morning, the brothers got up. They picked up their sacks full of food, put them on their donkeys, and set off on their journey back home to their father in Canaan. Well, Joseph waited a little while. He wanted to wait until the brothers were some way from his palace. And then he sent his servant after them. The servant soon caught them up. And when he caught them up, he said, "My master's silver cup is missing." But the brothers persisted and they said, "We've done nothing wrong. But if you find the silver cup in any of our sacks, then that person deserves to die, and the rest of us will become your master's slaves." So Joseph's servant began to search through the sacks. He started with Reuben's sack, the eldest. He looked in it, no silver cup. Then he went to the next brother's sack. Was there a silver cup in there? No silver cup. One by one, the servant looked through each brother's sack until there was just one sack left, the sack belonging to Benjamin, the youngest brother. And there inside the sack was Joseph's silver cup. Well, soon the brothers were back before Joseph again, and they threw themselves at his feet. "What have you done?" said Joseph. And Judah replied, "Sir, what can we say? And how can we show that we are not guilty? God has uncovered our guilt. So all of us will be your slaves, not just Benjamin." But Joseph said, "I will not make you all slaves. Only the man who stole the cup will be my slave. The rest of you may go back safely to your father." What will the brothers do? Will they leave Benjamin in Egypt just as they'd left their brother Joseph all those years ago? Judah spoke up and pleaded with Joseph. "Sir, we did what you asked, and we brought back our youngest brother. If we go back without him, it will break our father's heart. He's already lost one son, torn to pieces by wild animals. and losing another son will kill him. Judah continued, please let me take his place. I will stay here as your slave in place of my brother Benjamin. Judah was willing to stay behind in Egypt instead of his brother Benjamin. He was willing to work as a slave for this Egyptian he didn't know. He's willing to do this out of love for his brother Benjamin and out of love for his father Jacob. He didn't want his father to suffer the loss of another son. Joseph's brothers had changed. They no longer wanted to harm their brother. They wanted to do what was best for him and what was best for his father. God had been at work in their hearts. He had changed them. We're now going to hear from Tim, who's going to help us to think a little bit more about this story and what a difference knowing this about God can make to us.
Hello again. In our story this week, we're seeing more of God in charge of Joseph, Jacob, the brothers, and in fact, all his people. But we're also seeing a huge change of heart, or hearts, and that is Joseph's brothers' hearts. So let's see what happens, and let's see what it means for us. So, let's look first at the brothers' hearts. When they sold Joseph, do you remember that? We looked at this 3 weeks ago when they sold Joseph to the Midianites. If we look back at that time, we see a few things about them. We see that their hearts were hateful. They hated Joseph. They hated the fact he was the favorite son. They hated the fact that he had those dreams. They mocked him. They were mocking. They mocked him for being a dreamer. Do you remember that? They were selfish. They thought of themselves, not Joseph or not their father Jacob. They were deceitful. Do you remember? They killed the goat for the blood to put on Joseph's robe so they could go back to Jacob and say he'd been killed by a wild animal. They were murderous. Do you remember? Quite a few of them wanted to kill Joseph. And they were greedy. They wanted to sell Joseph. In fact, they did. They sold Joseph for money. So we can say that they were full of sin at that time. But then let's fast forward to this week and the story we just heard, and look at the brothers' hearts when they next met Joseph, even though they didn't know it was Joseph at that point. And let's look at how that worked. Let's look at their hearts there. So we can say now from the story that they were fearful. They were fearful of Joseph and what he might do. They were repentant. They were repentant of the things they'd done wrong. They didn't like the fact now what they'd done to Joseph. They were caring. They were really bothered about how Jacob, their father, felt and the pain he was feeling about having to send Benjamin down to Egypt with the brothers. And they were humble. They bowed down to Joseph when they'd got there, which is exactly what Joseph had said in the dream that God gave him. And they were unselfish. They put others first, Jacob, Benjamin. In fact, you almost say they were sacrificial. Reuben offered to kill his own sons if they didn't bring Benjamin back. So I think we can say that their hearts were truly changed. If you look at how they were in the way we've done the story 3 weeks ago and how they are in the story we've seen today, they're completely changed. And why are their hearts changed? Had they gradually or suddenly become good people? Or was it all a show? Or do you think this was God's work? Yes, you're right. This was God's work, wasn't it? Now, Do you know what? We're not really very much different from Joseph's brothers. That sounds bad, doesn't it? All those things that we've just looked at about being murderous and hateful and greedy. But actually, we're quite similar to that. Without Jesus, we're selfish. We put ourselves first. We're greedy. We want more than others. At times, we're hateful. We might hate someone. We might hate our brother or sister because they irritate us. We might hate someone at school because they've been nasty. So we do hate people. And we make idols. We put other things first ahead of Jesus. We make idols of our things. We might love our gadgets or our friends or ourselves. We just love ourselves more than anything else. In fact, we put ourselves in charge. And do you know what that means? That means we're in danger of spending our life here without Jesus and eternal life without Jesus in a not very nice place. But here's the thing. If we say sorry to Jesus for these things and ask for his help, and he will help us, he will change our hearts. So our hearts become unselfish, loving of others, caring of others, repentant, saying sorry for the things that we know that Jesus doesn't like, that we do or say or think, to put others first, in fact, to put him first. And of course, with all those things, we do become his friend here on earth, and we will be his friend forever in heaven. And we know what a fantastic place that is, and that will be. So I'm about to finish. So when I've done and I'm finished, why don't you ask Jesus to forgive you for those things that you know he wouldn't like, and ask him to change your heart also. I'm going to do that, actually. I need to do that. So goodbye from Claire, from Thomas, and from me. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.